Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to a very festive episode of the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and indeed, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Last year, of course, at Christmas, we did that issue of Justice League 110, the Who Murdered Santa Claus one. We got some pals to help us out, and it was glorious and wonderful. This year, we have something else planned for you. Earlier this year, Peter and I concluded our coverage of the 1970s Jack Kirby Sandman. Did issue 6 quite a few months ago. I'm sure we just talked about it in the Review of the Year episode. And some people probably know this. In fact, most people that listen to this show will probably know this. But there was a 7th issue planned, which wasn't published because the book was cancelled, but it was eventually printed in Cancel Comics Cavalcade, that fabled collection of DC material that didn't make it to the stands because of the DC implosion. But it was eventually also published properly in colour in issue 22 of the Best of DC Blue Ribbon Digest, Christmas with the Superheroes, published on the 3rd of December 1981, my sister's second birthday. So, if you have that particular digest comic to hand, you'll be able to read along with us as we bring you a very exciting Christmas-themed Jack Kirby Sandman story. Now, Peter has a couple of covers to tell us about.
And we'll certainly do. First of all, there is the cover for Sandman issue 7, at least what would have been Sandman issue 7. At the top, we have the cigar band, with the face of Sandman staring right at us. Again, he's got that faraway look in his eye. And the Sandman, the line of DC superstars. And the supporting cast, of course, with their mugshots. We have Jed, Brute, and Glob. 25 cents. And the production code would have been, because it wasn't published, 30637. The Sandman, Master of Nightmares. Now, as this was an unpublished cover, it's in black and white, so I can't give you our usual 4-colour description, but you'll get the gist. We're in a strange dreamscape. There's strange Kirby dots in the background, my goodness. There is a man who is tied up, and he looks very familiar, especially at this time of year. He's got a familiar hat on, he has a big white beard, a rather large belly, a big black belt, and he's tied up against a big column of snow. Now, he's being surrounded by what appear to be strange animal-like soldiers. We only really get a back view of them here, but they have kind of like knife-like spears, and they're wearing armour, and they have like helmets on, and yep, they are very, very threatening. And tied up with Santa Claus against this snow column is supporting character Jed. Oh my goodness, he's always in trouble.
He is. He's a menace.
I know. And he's shouting out to a familiar character who's running in from the right, "Watch out, Sandman! It's a trap!" And of course, Sandman is rushing. Sandman, the image of him here is not particularly good, I'll be honest.
I would agree, yeah.
Very misproportioned. He's got like a really short right leg in the background, and his left leg looks quite bent, and his body actually looks huge in comparison. It's very strange.
Yeah, because his upper torso seems... He must be leaning forward and rushing at speed, I think.
Yep.
It's a shame this wasn't published in colour, because I can imagine the background Kirby dot sort of sky crackle just looking amazing.
It would definitely.
We'll have to see if we can get a colour version of this prepared in advance of releasing the episode.
That would be delightful.
We're recording this very, very far in advance.
Yes, we're recording this in 2012. That's how far in advance we've planned this.
Not quite, but yeah. So yes, it's very dynamic, very exciting, and of course, Christmas with the Superheroes, the Best of DC Blue Ribbon Digest, had a different cover.
It certainly did. The Best of DC Blue Ribbon Digest in the top left corner. Christmas with the Superheroes, 95 cents, number 22, and it's got a March cover date, which doesn't seem proper for a Christmas tale, but obviously, it was on sale way before that. It's a Rich Buckler and Dick Giordano cover, and we have Superman and Batman holding a festive Christmas wreath. And framed in this wreath are some of the heroes that appear in this issue. We have Kid Flash, Aqualad, Captain Marvel Jr., Green Arrow, Robin, Wonder Girl, and Black Canary. And at the bottom we have some text that says, 7 sparkling Christmas stories of the world's greatest heroes, featuring the Justice League and the Teen Titans. But obviously we're not going to do those stories. Well, we did the Justice League story, actually, last year. The Man Who Murdered Santa Claus, which is reprinted in this. And on the back cover, it's delightful, in fact. It's like a Christmas tree close-up with all the different baubles, and the baubles have got different characters on them. There's one with Superman, one with Batman and Robin, one with Green Arrow, who actually looks particularly angsty, not very festive, Ollie. There's Wonder Girl, there's Kid Flash and Aqualad together, there's Black Canary on her own, there's Captain Marvel Jr., and at the bottom, looking up, is our hero, the Sandman, and there's a banner that says, "Exclusive! A never-before-published Jack Kirby story!"
Fantastic.
Oh, superb.
Appalling that they put that in the back cover, though, really. They should have put that in the front to try and entice people to buy it. Right. With all that lovely preamble in mind, isn't it nice to have a bonus unexpected Sandman story at Christmas? I think it is.
It certainly is.
We begin, as you'd expect, with a lengthy bit of captioning.
Somewhere between heaven and earth, there is a place where dreams are born and monitored. This is the domain of a legendary figure, eternal and immortal, who shares with man and beast all the secrets of the ages. The Sandman in The Sealmen's War on Santa Claus.
And as a delightful opening splash image, which kind of echoes the cover, we have a dark nighttime sky with Kirby crackle dots flaring all the way through it. Oh, that kind of looks like the moon over that big column of snow that Santa Claus is tied to, so you could probably take a Christmassy drink.
Do you have some eggnog, folks?
Sure,
yes.
That works. Now, quite a lot going on, because as well as Santa Claus being tied to this column of snow, we can see some buildings in the distance, and we see that this column of snow, or maybe a column of ice, maybe more appropriate, is balanced on a large floating sheet of ice which is loose and floating in the sea. There are polar bears popping about the water, looking as if they're going to eat Santa Claus, but in the foreground, we see Sandman and Jed wearing a nice green fur-lined parka, and they're fighting, I'm guessing, the eponymous seal men. Very Kirby-like anthropomorphic seals wearing armour as Pete described in the cover, and they're carrying spears, etc. And Sandman and Jed are tussling with them, and Sandman is saying, "I know it looks hopeless, Jed, but we've got to keep on fighting. Unless we can rescue Santa Claus from the seal men, Christmas throughout the world is as good as dead." Jed says,
"Not to mention what'll probably happen to us."
And then we get the credits for the story.
Script, Michael Fleischer. Art, Jack Kirby and Mike Royer. Editor, Joe Orlando.
Terrific. So, things begin properly with another caption.
"It is the day before Christmas, and the farm where young Jed has been living since the death of his grandpa is buried beneath a blanket of blizzard-driven snow."
Yes, remember Jed went to live with his auntie and uncle and horrible cousins. We all remember them, don't we? Beautiful snowy landscape. And from inside the farmhouse, we hear the voice of Jed's Aunt Clarice as she says, "You may not go outside in a snowstorm, Bruce, and that's final." And then we see Bruce whining, like the emo pain in the neck that he is in the next panel as he says,
"But Mom, you gotta let me go. The kids at school dared me to try and collect a Christmas fund contribution from that old miser Titus Go Trucks. I can't go back in a dare."
"I absolutely forbid it, Bruce. If someone has to go out in this awful weather, we'll let Jed go." And Jed looks up from the book that he's reading beside the roaring fire, and he says,
"Me? But why me?"
"Well, for one thing, you're older than Bruce."
"But only 2 weeks older."
"Older is older." She's standing with her hands on her hips. I really didn't like this woman. "Besides, needy folks everywhere are counting on that Christmas fund contribution. Right, Bruce?"
"Right, Mom."
We see Jed putting on his woolly coat and his Kyle from South Park hat as Aunt Clarice continues, "And see that you slam the door tightly when you go, Jed. The rest of us don't want to catch pneumonia just because you've decided to go gallivanting about in this horrible weather."
"Yes, ma'am."
She's so contrary, I hate her. There's a slow dissolve. A caption reads,
"And so..."
We see Jed with the spade digging a path out away from the house through the snow, and he thinks to himself, there's another slow dissolve.
"Soon..."
See that Jed has managed to dig out quite a deep sort of path through the snow. Still shoveling away, he thinks,
"This whole errand is ridiculous. Titus Go Trucks is rich, but I've heard he's so stingy he'd never contribute a dime to the Christmas fund."
Over the page, and we're in a reading room, living room situation. There's an old man, balding, scruffs of white hair around the back of his head, sat in a big chair reading a book with a blanket over his knees. And there's a younger man with dark hair, a very neat moustache, cigarette in his mouth, wearing a brown suit, looking out the window. And this younger man is saying,
"There's a child headed this way, Uncle Titus. Don't the local riffraff know you like to have privacy?"
"A child? Out in this awful storm? Well, don't just stand there posing for animal crackers, Rodney. Answer the door,"
"Yes, Uncle,"
says Rodney through thin lips. He opens the door, and the next panel we see Jed standing, puddle forming in the floor beneath him as Rodney says,
"All right, little boy. What do you want here?"
"Don't interrogate the youngster, Rodney. Bring him inside." We see Jed taking off his cowl from South Park hat, and he says,
Thank you, sir. I won't stay long, sir. I was just wondering if you'd like to make a contribution to the Christmas fund, sir."
"And just why do you suppose I'd want to do that, young man?"
"Yes, why should my uncle?"
"Hush, Rodney. Let the boy answer."
"The Christmas fund helps folks who are needy, sir. Your contribution would help to spread some holiday cheer in the world, just like Santa Claus does." "Santa Claus? Do you actually—"
"Quiet, Rodney." Uncle Titus turns to Jed. "You don't actually believe in Santa Claus, do you, boy?"
"Of course I do, sir. Doesn't everybody?"
Rodney laughs in the background. We don't like Rodney, listeners. Uncle Titus leans forward in his chair, pointing at Jed. He says, "I like your spirit, young fellow, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you can prove to me by midnight tonight that there really is such a person as Santa Claus, I'll give that fund of yours a check for $1 million.
"Uncle Titus! Oh, wow! $1 million? Do you really mean it, sir?"
"Of course I mean it. Do I look like a man who doesn't keep his word? But tell me, how do you suppose you'll begin?"
"That's easy, sir. I'll ask my pal, the Sandman, what to do. He knows just about everything."
Jed puts on his Kyle from South Park cap and makes to leave, saying,
"And for a good cause like the Christmas fund, I know you'll help me prove there's a Santa."
"All right, youngster. It's 2:00. That gives you 10 hours.
Moments later.
See that Rodney is putting on a hat and coat. Uncle Titus sat in the chair, is saying, "Cute little tag, wasn't he, Rodney? I liked his gumption. Of course, he'll never succeed in proving there's a Santa Claus, but when he comes back, I think I'll make a small contribution anyway. Funny, though, he seemed awfully confident, didn't he?"
Yes, Uncle Titus, he did. Excuse me, Uncle. The storm's let up a bit. I think I'm going to take a short walk."
Yes, and he leaves the house in the next panel, beautifully rendered by Jack, snow piling high. We can see the path that Jed dug his way through, and as he leaves, wrapped up against the wintry weather, Rodney is thinking,
"He sure did seem confident. Too confident. I'm probably just being overly cautious, but when Uncle Titus finally kicks the buckets, I'm the one who's going to inherit his millions."
And we see that he's following Jed from a distance, ducking behind a tree to watch what he's doing. His thoughts continue.
"And I didn't want him signing over $1 million of it to that. There he is, over near that tree. But what's that weird whistle he's holding in his hand?"
See Jed as he thinks.
"When the Sandman gave me this whistle, he said I could use it to call him any time I needed him. Gosh, I hope it really works."
And Jed blows. And then, dropping out the sky, a familiar face says, "Did you call me, Jed?"
"Well, Sandman, how did you get here so fast? Where did you come from?"
In his surprise, Jed drops his whistle. Sandman moves towards him. Jed says,
"What?"
Sandman reassures him by gripping his shoulders and says, "Hold on, youngster. Suppose you try to calm down and tell me what this is all about."
And after Jed has breathlessly told the Sandman his story...
Yes, it's dialogue framed around a shot of the whistle lying in the snow. Sandman is saying, "Why, that'll be no problem at all. Santa Claus is a friend of mine from way back. He'll be glad to help out.
"Gee, Sandman, that's great."
Just grab hold of my waist. We'll make a quick stop over at the Dream Dome and then head straight for Santa's workshop in the North Polar region of the Dream Stream." And Jed grabs a hold of his hero and says,
"I'm ready, Sandman."
In the next panel, we see him popping out of a tube back into the Dream Dome. We see Brute and Glob in their little glass containers, and Brute says, "Well, what do you know? If it ain't little Jed, my #1 fan. Hi there, sport."
"Hello, Mr. Brute. Nice to see you too, Mr. Glob."
Sandman has crossed over to operate some controls on one of his many consoles. "Jed and I are going on a mission into the Dream Stream. I'm letting you two out of your tubes so you can handle emergencies while I'm gone,"
"Oh, goody."
says Glob, obviously delighted. And we see him and Brute marching along in the next panel with Glob saying,
We like being out on our own, don't we, Brute?
"If you ask me, you and me ought to be in charge up here all the time, Glob." "Don't let a little delegated authority go to your head, Brute," says Sandman, crossing over to the bar, which he uses to launch himself into the ejector tube. He says, "Come on, Jed, let's travel. We've a long journey ahead."
Right behind you, Sandman.
Instantaneously, the Dream Master and his young aide are catapulted into the Dream Stream, the eerie twilight dimension which is the dwelling place of all the hideous nightmare phantasms.
"We'll head for the Fantasy Forest, the home of the Nightmare Wizard. We'll need his help if we're going to make the long journey to Santa's workshop in time."
Meanwhile,
We're back with creepy Rodney, who's moving through the snow and looking down at the ground and thinking,
I saw it with my own eyes, and I still can't believe it. First this costumed weirdo appears out of nowhere, then they vanish into thin air. But I saw the kid drop his whistle here.
and indeed he finds the whistle. He picks it up. Examining it, he thinks,
I still don't believe in Santa Claus, but in case there is one, I've got to stop that punk from proving it. I wonder if that Sandman character would appear if I blew in this whistle.
and he does blow, with his eyes all scrunched up and his cheeks puffed out. And then he thinks,
What a crazy sound it makes. I've never heard anything like it, except maybe in my dreams.
in the next panel, a very large, blocky hand reaches in and touches Rodney on the shoulder, and the voice says, "You dialed my special emergency number, Twinkle Toes?"
Huh?
And Rodney turns to see a familiar, hulking, muscular, bald figure who leans towards him. Rodney exclaims,
Who are you?
"I know you won't believe this, sweetheart, but actually, I'm one of Snow White's 7 dwarfs. Now, suppose you tell me how you got hold of that special whistle." Rodney thinks,
I've got to catch that $1 million kid. Perhaps I can get this weirdo to help me. The Sandman gave it to me. I was supposed to visit Santa's workshop with him and Jed, but I got here late and they left without me.
"Well, why didn't you say so, sport? Just close them baby blues real tight, and I'll have you in the Dream Dome in 2 shakes of a comet's tail,"
I'm ready.
says Rodney, closing his eyes tight.
while in the Dream Stream,
Yes, quite a lot going on here. We see Sandman and Jed, and it looks like a small boat that they're standing in front of, but there's also another figure, a man wearing a green cloak who has wild white hair. Sandman is saying, "Thanks for lending Jed that parka, wizard." See that Jed's wearing another nice warm winter coat. "And for lending us this sky sled for the trip to Santa's workshop."
Don't mention it, Sandman. I owe you and Jed a favour from the time you rescued me from those invading aliens.
And a little asterisk takes us to a caption which reads,
Sandman Issue 4, Editor. Or indeed the previous episode of this podcast.
and, I mean, we said boat, and now we see in the next panel it's actually sort of just lying on grass, so it kind of looked like it was floating in sort of green water at the bottom of page 7, but it's obviously not. Reading from a digest comic is not ideal, listeners. As Sandman and Jed mount their transport of delight, the Nightmare Wizard continues.
Bye-bye, you two. Don't get eaten by any stray polar bears. Besides, I rather like the idea of your going to the North Pole. Maybe you'll decide to make it your permanent home.
"Don't mind him, Jed. Come on, hop aboard." And he does.
but back in the Dream Dome,
Oh, Rodney's in the Dream Dome. Casting his eyes around, he says,
Good grief, what is this place?
"It's the Dream Dome, Knucklehead. But don't worry about it, you ain't gonna be here long."
I'm not?
Hey, what are you doing?
Brute has lifted Rodney into the air and he's saying, "You said you wanted to catch up with Sandman, didn't you? Well, here's your big chance." And he launches Rodney into the ejector tube saying, "Give my regards to the man-eating plants in the Fantasy Forest."
hurled bodily into the Dream Stream, the unscrupulous Rodney comes to a landing at the outer edge of the lush fantasy forest.
I think that the unscrupulous Rodney supported menswear at the Jug of Ale in Birmingham on one of their early gigs. Anyway, Rodney looks around the fantasy forest, taking in the weird flora and fauna, etc., and he thinks to himself,
Maybe I shouldn't have tried to follow Jed and that freak in the circus costume. But for $1 million, I guess you have to take some risks.
exclaims because a large orange tentacle creeper has wrapped itself around him and borne him up into the air.
Squirming helplessly in the slimy grip of the monstrous man-eating plant, Rodney begins to shriek with terror.
And indeed he yells, and this is a great panel, I really hope it makes it to the socials, large purple plant beastie, huge gaping maw with like red fronds and tentacles inside. The orange creeper has lifted Rodney right towards its open mouth, but thankfully a caption reads,
And then...
and a familiar friendly figure bursts in to the scene and cries,
Samantha! Let that man down this instant!
yes, it's the Nightmare Wizard to the rescue.
Instantly, the carnivorous plant creature obeys its master, and...
Rodney is released, dropped to the ground. The Nightmare Wizard steps forward. Waving his staff, he says,
Who are you? What are you doing in my domain? Don't you know that eating humans can give my delicate plants indigestion?
Rodney stammers,
I'm a friend of the Sandman. He said to... Friend of the Sandman, eh? Well, he and Jed have gone off to visit Santa Claus. But come on, you could probably still catch up with him.
there's a slow dissolve.
Presently...
And we see another one of the little sky sleds lying in a patch of yellow grass. Rodney looking at it closely as the Nightmare Wizard, his face shrouded, interestingly, is saying,
Just head due north till you reach the North Polar region of the Dream Stream. You can't miss it. Thanks, old man. The Sandman and Jed will appreciate this, believe me.
and he thinks,
And they wouldn't count on their living long enough to express their undying gratitude.
Meanwhile, Jed and the Sandman have arrived at their destination.
yes, we see the sky sled parked in the snow. We see a nice candy cane pole with a sign at the top of it that reads North Pole, and we see Jed and the Sandman marching through a path in the snow up towards a building up ahead. Jed is saying,
Gosh, Sandman, am I really going to meet Santa Claus in person?
you sure are. That's his workshop up ahead. And wait till you meet Santa's elves. They're always so warm and friendly. And then we see, as Jed and Sandman walk through this little snowy trench, there's about half a dozen Santa's elves carrying mallets and sticks, and a couple of them pulling a net between them, which they throw over Sandman and Jed. The chief elf yells,
Attack! Don't let him escape!
"What?" cries Sandman. Jed gasps, and in the next panel, the elves all start piling on them and hitting them with what looks like baseball bats, but with mallets and hammers, and Jed cries,
I thought you said the elves were, friendly.
"I can't understand it! There's got to be some logical explanation for this!" And then off camera, a voice says, "For heaven's sake, you elves! Stop it! You're making a mistake!" And the elves stop their battering. One of them exclaims,
Huh?
and they look round to see a large matronly woman wearing a blue dress with an orange shawl and a big yellow sort of weird hat, wearing glasses, wagging an accusing finger at them all when she says, "These aren't seal men! My word, don't you even recognise the Sandman when you see him?" And one of the elves says,
We're sorry, Mrs. Claus.
"Please accept my apologies, Sandman. We've all been a little edgy ever since the seal men sneaked down here and kidnapped Santa." We can see the net has been removed from our heroes. Sandman replies, "What? But I thought the seal men have always been friendly." "They always have been until now. I can't explain it. Santa's remembered them with gifts every single Christmas."
Gosh, Mrs. Claus, tonight's Christmas Eve. What'll happen if the seal men don't give Santa back?
You see that she's quite upset. She has a handkerchief and she's mopping her tears as she says, "If Santa isn't here to drive his magic sleigh tonight, I guess we'll just have to call Christmas off this year." Call Christmas off? We can't let that happen. Kids the world over have been dreaming of Christmas for weeks. Come on, Jed. We've got to rescue Santa Claus, even if it means taking on all the seal men single-handed.
I'm right with you, Sandman.
See them running across the snow and ice together with a weird sort of aurora borealis northern light effect rippling in the sky above them. And Jed is saying,
About how many seal men are there, Sandman?
"Roughly 10,000. But don't you worry, good will always triumph over evil." They're going to take on all 10,000 single. Amazing. There's a slow dissolve.
An hour later...
And we see a familiar figure in red and white standing in the near distance. Jed points at him and says,
Look, isn't that Santa Claus standing alone in that clearing?
"It sure looks like it."
But...
They get closer. Jed reaches up to touch the figure and says,
Gosh, this isn't Santa Claus. It's just a snowman dressed in a Santa costume.
"I know, and that's what gets me worried. Worried that this snowman was deliberately placed here as a decoy to lure us into a trap." And he turns around and we see a good 8 or 9 seal men come out of the water towards them bearing their large pointy pikes and spears. They have sort of blue tunics and we can see that they have sort of golden helmets, large webbed feet, and their arms and hands are essentially a seal's front legs. Jed takes it all in and... a couple of seal men who we see have large Kirby-style batons get stuck in to Jed and Sandman, striking them violently. And then we have a slow dissolve.
When the Dream Lord and his young apprentice finally regain consciousness...
They're inside a cell of some kind. We can see chains hanging from the wall, bars in the window. The wall's made out of large bricks, and also sharing the space with them is a familiar figure with a wild white beard, dressed in red and white, and he leans down towards our two heroes and says,
I'm mighty sorry to see that you've been dragged into this, Sandman, old friend.
Sanda! Well, at least we found you, sir. This is my pal Jed, Sanda. I brought him out here to meet you because he can win $1 million for charity by proving you're real.
Oh, I'm real, all right. But try telling that to 1 billion children tomorrow morning if I don't get out of here in time to deliver my sleigh load of gifts.
Whatever happens, it's an honour to meet you, sir.
Santa shakes hands with Jed, saying,
And it's a pleasure to meet you, Jed. I hope you'll forgive me for refraining from my traditional ho-ho-ho, but it's hard to summon a hearty laugh when you're locked in a dungeon, even for Santa Claus.
Why have the Seal Men kidnapped you, Santa?
I only wish I knew. I always thought I was the Seal Men's friend, but this year they seem determined to sabotage Christmas.
Well, we can't let that happen. Stand back. I'm going to use my hypnosonic whistle. And Sandman does, and he blows. And we see he's directing a little stream of golden energy towards the wall of the cell. Jed says,
Look, Santa, he's doing it. The bars are melting.
More than that, Jed, the whole wall is melting. Santa then says,
What a terrific gadget! I wish I had one like it for widening narrow chimneys.
Great. The next panel we see our three heroes legging it. A voice yells, Sound the alarm, quickly! The prisoners are escaping! What? Exclaims Sandman, looking around, and Jed says,
Look out, we've been spotted.
You certainly have a genius for stating the obvious, young fellow.
We see that the next panel they're all being set upon by a bunch of seal men, spears flying in, and there's a nice pow sound effect as Sandman punches one of the seal men, saying, Remember, we're not just fighting to save ourselves, we're fighting to save Christmas.
The Dream Lord and his friends fight like valiant tigers against the horde of onrushing seal men.
Yes, there's a very satisfying biff and another
Sock.
Great fun. Sound Effects City, New Jersey. Sandman and Santa Claus back to back, punching away at the seal men. Jed cowering, and Sandman says, You may be getting old, Santa, but you sure don't fight like you're old.
Me? Old? Don't be ridiculous. I'm only 1,600 years old, barely out of my beardless youth. But the odds against the champions of Christmas are overwhelming, and...
We see our heroes with spears in their back being forced towards another large seal man who's on a throne. One of the seal men soldiers says,
We caught the prisoners trying to escape, sire.
Return them to the dungeons, and once Christmas is safely past, release them. Hey, wait a minute, cries Sandman. What's wrong with you people anyway? Why are you so determined to sabotage Christmas? Because if we of the Seal Kingdom are going to be denied a Merry Christmas, we're going to see to it that no one else enjoys one either.
But that's ridiculous. I've delivered whole crates of gifts to your kingdom every single year. You know I have,
says Santa. The king isn't having it, he replies. Yes, and just look at them. Woolen gloves, even though seal men have webbed flippers instead of hands. Scuba diving equipment, even though, as any child knows, seals can dive effortlessly to depths of hundreds of feet and stay underwater almost indefinitely. And look at these, holding up a pair of boots. Who ever heard of a self-respecting seal wearing galoshes? Then he holds up another familiar piece of equipment and says, Or catching fish with a fishing rod. Jed finds this amusing. This is not a laughing matter, says the Seal King, and Sandman, realizing he's not happy, replies, No, sir, we can see it isn't. But can't you see that there's just been some sort of accidental mix-up? I've known Santa for centuries, and he's never intentionally disappointed anybody. Jed starts to plead for sensibleness now when he says,
The Sandman's right, Your Majesty. You just got the wrong gift boxes by mistake. Somewhere out in this Sahara Desert or somewhere, there are probably kids wondering what they're supposed to do with cases of frozen fish they got.
Ha ha ha, that is funny. All right, you three. If you'll promise that this kind of thing will never happen again, I'll let you go.
I give you my word, Your Highness. And I'll even see to it that my elves exchange those mistaken gifts from past Christmases. I promise.
And so, there's a slow dissolve and a caption that says,
And so,
and we see, oh, this is amazing, this is beautiful. Almost in silhouette, with a sky full of Kirby crackles behind them, we see Jed, Sandman and Santa Claus sprinting along. Sandman says, "Hey Santa, slow down! What's the hurry?"
slow down. Don't you two realize what time it is? If I don't get back home and hitch my sleigh, all your efforts to rescue me will be completely wasted. A quick dash later.
Santa, Sandman and Jed arrive back at the workshop. Santa, reaching for the door, says,
I think we've made it back just under the deadline, boys. I'll just hitch up Rudolph and my other magic reindeer and...
They enter, and Santa and Sandman exclaims, "Mrs. Claus!" Because we see that Mrs. Claus has been gagged and tied to a chair. She can only exclaim, "Mm." Sandman reaches forward, removes the gag from her mouth and says, "Who did this to you, Mrs. Claus?"
It couldn't have been the seal man,
says Jed, and then another voice says,
That's right, Brat, it wasn't.
and the camera whips round to reveal a dark-haired man with a neat moustache, wearing a purple parka, and pointing a gun at our heroes. Sandman exclaims, "Huh?" Santa says,
Who are you? What are you doing here?
I know who he is. He's Mr. Goatroxy's nephew, Rodney.
"It is Rodney." Rodney, bearing the pistol, says,
That's right, and this isn't one of Santa's toys in my hand either.
we pull back for the next panel. He's pointing the gun at our heroes. We can see them all lined up. Rodney continues,
When my beloved uncle finally croaks, I'm going to inherit his piles of money, and I don't intend to come up $1 million short just because you managed to show up with a funny fat man in a red suit.
Santa is not impressed at this. He says,
Fat?
while this exchange is taking place, we see Sandman delving into a pocket as he thinks, "My sand cartridges, they're our only chance."
The Sandman's fingers fly deftly to his cartridge belt, and...
He throws a sand cartridge and it bursts, and Rodney can't be seen for a cloud of yellow dust, but he can be heard.
Hey, that's sand getting in my eyes, pushing me to sleep.
We see the pistol dropping to the floor as Jed says,
Good going, Sandman, you got him.
And so, a short while later, in Titus Goatroxy's mansion...
and we see the old man sitting looking up at the clock on the mantelpiece above him, which almost has both hands at the vertical, and he's thinking, well, there it is, midnight. Maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on that spunky little lad. He's probably so embarrassed at not being able to prove the existence of Santa Claus that he hasn't even bothered to show up. And that nephew of mine seems to have completely... But he breaks off because we can hear... And hearing the sound, he thinks, huh? What was that? And then there's a figure drops out of his chimney. It's a man in a brown suit, dark hair, a neat moustache, bound up in ropes. Titus gets to his feet and says, "Rodney? Who? What?" And then there is a... as Santa Claus also drops from the chimney, saying,
I did it. Your nephew resorted to violence to try to prevent me from coming here tonight.
"Santa Claus!"
What's this I hear about you not believing in me anymore, Titus? Why, about 60 years ago, when you were a little boy, you believed in Santa Claus more than just about anyone.
I know, Santa. I remember. But sometimes when you get old, you have aches and worries and responsibilities, and, well, you forget.
I understand, Titus,
says Santa, putting a comforting hand on Titus's shoulder. "The boy, did he bring you?"
Indeed he did. He and his friend the Sandman are up on the roof right now, watching over my sleigh. The boy is waiting for his check, Titus.
And Titus, to his credit, has the check for $1 million in his hand. He hands it over, saying, "Don't worry, Santa. I have it right here. Right after the boy left, I decided to give the $1 million to charity anyway, no matter what happened."
You're a good man, Titus. Tell me, is there something special you would like for Christmas?
And Titus leans forward, whispering into Santa's ear. "Yes, Santa, there is. It's something I've always wanted."
And what is it that Titus Goatrox has always wanted, you ask? Well,
the next panel's lovely. We see Santa's sleigh flying through the night sky, being, of course, led by a few of his reindeer. In the back seat of the sleigh, we see the Sandman and Jed, and in the front seat, Santa Claus and Titus Goatrox, with Titus holding the reins. Santa laughs.
You're doing a fine job driving my sleigh, Titus, but you'd better pour on some hustle. The kids in Asia and Australia will be popping out of bed almost any time now, and we don't want to be late.
And in the final panel, you can take another Christmas drink, listeners, as we see the sleigh being borne aloft by the reindeer, flying over the farmhouse where Jed lives with his family. From inside, we hear... and the voice of Aunt Clarice as she says, "Oh, my poor dear Bruce, you've caught a cold. I'll bet that Jed gave it to you when he opened the door to leave the house this afternoon. Just wait till he gets home." But our heroes aren't concerned, because as the sleigh flies overhead, they all cry,
Merry Christmas, everybody!
And we have reached
The end. Woohoo! Well, that was delightful. Absolutely delightful.
Yes, a nice little coda, as it were, to the Sandman saga, and a nice, creepy, scary Christmas story.
Yes.
Who needs Tim Burton?
Exactly. No, absolutely, this was a delightful tale. I loved every single page. Again, as we always said, for the Sandman stories, they're amazing adventure stories for kids. They're just so much fun, so many fantastic wild ideas in them, and every panel's a joy. It really is.
I liked that Rodney got his comeuppance.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really liked just the basic idea that Sandman and Santa Claus were friends
Of course.
and had known each other for ages.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. It's obviously been a few months since we've done one of these stories, but the sort of rhythm and feel of it was just exactly the same as all the other ones. It was really nice just going back in. Nice to have a reappearance from the Nightmare Wizard, of course.
The Return of the Nightmare Wizard. You've got to love that.
It's a lot of fun. It has that quality of some of the other issues where it takes a little while to set things up,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a bit of a brief scuffle and it's all over. So
Yeah.
it's nice that it feels just as authentic as the other ones. No, it was glorious and did feel very Christmassy. I love the idea of having to rescue Santa Claus in time,
Exactly,
or else
yes.
Christmas would be cancelled, and that just, it's perfect.
It's a classic trope. I love it. It's
perfect.
amazing.
Absolutely perfect.
Mhm.
There are some beautiful panels. I've managed to source a few pages of the original art, which we'll put on the socials at some point over the next week, and between now and New Year. And as usual, we'll stick a few panel highlights on the socials so you can have a look. And yeah, lovely. Just that's it. We're not going to have a huge discussion on this one, listeners. So
Nope. We'll let you get back to your Christmas dinner.
absolutely, you can go and rejoin your families and Merry Christmas and have a nice rest of your day.
Indeed.
Basically.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone.
We're going to take a little break next week, so Peter can recharge his editing muscles. But all the best for New Year when it comes, listeners. Isn't that right, Peter?
Absolutely, yes. Happy holidays, and we shall see you in 2026.
Gosh.
Mm.
Our 7th calendar year of releasing episodes.
On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
And I've been David. Take care, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year from everyone here at
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to a very festive episode of the Earth 2...
Good
Flying
start.
stop.
Well, Grob is lifting Rodney. Grob? What? That's not even his name. It's Brute. Oh. There's your outtake.
Hurled bodily into the dream stream, the unscrupulous Rodney comes to a landing at the outer edge of the lush fantasy forest.
I think the unscrupulous Rodney supported menswear at... Hang on. I've got a whole list of new venues to use. I better find it. Where is it? I'm pretty sure the unscrupulous... I'm pretty sure that the unscrupulous Rodney supported menswear at oh, right, okay. I'm pretty sure that the This is not worth it, is it? I'm pretty sure that the unscrupulous Rodney supported menswear at the Jug of Ale in Birmingham on one of their early gigs.
Who are you? What are you doing in my domain?
Off.
Here we go.
Sorry, it's just too good.